Guys, the Irish Dragon is saving the day. He's replacing Islam Makhachev and taking on Rafael dos Anjos. Nick and I, we're talking about it right now. What's up, Barnhill family? Welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
So, Nick, we got a last-minute replacement. The Irish Dragon, Paul Felder. He's taken off the three-piece suit, taking out the earpiece, putting the microphone down, and exchanging it all for some fight gloves and shorts, and he's going in there main event style, and he's taking on RDA as a replacement to Islam Makhachev.
Yeah, what a way to come out of retirement, because it seemed as
I
though
thought he was retired.
kind of in retirement, but no, he's tough as nails. Everybody knows the Irish Dragon's always game, and it always helps somebody's legacy or their career story when you see him just step in on something like 5 days notice against a world beater in RDA. And, the deck's stacked against him, but he's going to go in there and put on a performance. And I'm super excited to see how he does, if he's able to shake the rust off quickly, if he's able to hang for a full 5-round main event. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered, and I think Paul Felder is the perfect guy for this.
Yeah, I think so, and kudos to him. And one thing I love about Paul Felder, and I think why he's a fan favorite, is because he is known for doing stuff like this. Paul Felder's a company guy. You see he's an analyst now. That's
rewarded him in more ways than one.
Yeah, we've said it many times on this channel. Being a company guy gets you rewarded in so many ways, and Paul Felder's definitely an example of that. A couple things that I think are really interesting is when I first heard that this was announced, I said, well, they're probably going to do it at 170 because, Paul's not going to have time to cut the weight. No, they're doing this thing at 155.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, it'd probably be a 3-rounder. And Paul and RDA said, no, we're the main event. We don't want to deprive the fans. We want to give them a real main event. So I thought that Paul might have a bit of trouble cutting weight, but he did come out and say that he was actually training for a triathlon when all this transpired. So he was already super lean, and he said although he's not in the gym sparring every day and getting beat up and taking those hard rounds, he is in the gym staying fresh, working technique, working pads, doing jiu-jitsu, things like that. So according to him, he's in good enough shape for a 5-rounder, and he's within striking range of that 155 mark to do this at 55. So yeah, we got a 155 5-round main event on 5 days notice. Yeah,
it's pretty impressive. Paul Felder seems like a pretty disciplined guy, not just when he was fighting and I guess still is fighting, but in general. Like, I could see Paul Felder 10 years down the road when he's long retired, still staying in good shape, still being one of those guys that you could probably see in the gyms a couple of days a week, getting his jiu-jitsu rounds in or his Muay Thai rounds. So I think, he's just a disciplined human being, and it's going to pay off for him because, the UFC probably offered him a pretty nice little check to take this fight on short notice. And, when you're trying to save a main event, it's more than just pulling somebody. Because I'm sure if they called some people and said, hey, look, RDA needs an opponent, Islam Makhachev's out, 5 days notice, you're going to be in the main event. There's some guys at 155 and even 170 that would suck some weight down to make that fight to be in the main event. But what they were missing was another name.
Yeah.
And Islam Makhachev is the name that they're going to build, but as of right now, RDA is the biggest name by far on that card. And then Islam was going to be next to him, but now you got Paul Felder in there, and he's comparable to RDA as far as fans knowing who they are.
Name recognition.
But the rest of the card is really lacking in names and stars and stuff like that. So they needed somebody more than just a guy at 155 that nobody really knows that's willing to take a fight against RDA on short notice, potentially shock the world. And I think Paul Felder is going to bring more eyes to this fight now than they might have even had prior to him being on this card.
There's no question about that. I mean, I was excited to see Makhachev get in there and see if he can rise to the occasion of being put in that elite conversation by beating a legend like RDA. But I got to be honest, as just a longtime fan of the UFC, the fact that I'm going to get to see this Saturday night Paul Felder versus RDA, which is a fight that I never really even knew that I wanted until it was announced, and I was like, oh my God, I can't wait for this fight. Paul Felder is sort of booking this in his own mind as, and he said this, that this is a win-win for him. He said, look, this is a win-win for me because I'm going to get to tell my grandkids that I fought yet another
champ.
Hall of Famer, potentially a former world champion and world beater in RDA. And he said something that I thought was very interesting because he was asked, because obviously he was sort of semi-retired to begin with.
Right.
They said, does this fight, is this your last fight? And he said it's 50-50, but those odds go up if I win. In other words, if he wins the fight, he is more apt, according to him, to retire than he would be if he loses. He said, if I lose the fight, then I'm just going to have that fire burning in me again and want to get back out there and try to prove something. But if I beat a guy who's such a legend like an RDA in a main event, I might be able to just sail off into the sunset
Retire
and feel
on a high
content.
note.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this is a great way to retire. I mean, take it on 5 days' notice against a guy who is only a couple fights away from being a top contender at 155, the division that he was the champion not too long ago. Paul Felder is, personally, I think that this is a great way for Paul Felder to come out of retirement. He was unsure when he made his retirement speech. Since then, he's been a little unsure about the decision that he made. And it's not like the UFC closed the door on him. He's clearly been in the USADA testing pool and hasn't come out of that. That's why how he's eligible to fight right now. I just feel like there's no pressure on him right now. He's stepping into this on such short notice. The expectations aren't exactly through the roof like they would be in a regular Paul Felder fight. I mean, a guy who is, won like 5 out of his last 7 fights or something crazy like that in the toughest division in the entire sport. So I think if he would have had a 3-month training camp to get ready for this, and that thought of looming in his head of if I win, maybe I'll retire on a high note. If I lose, then I'm going to have to keep grinding in the gym every single day. That wasn't on his mind. He's been in Abu Dhabi calling fights. He's been, in Las Vegas calling fights. He's been living life, enjoying himself. And then, the UFC calls him and he gets to put his Superman outfit on and save the day, save the card. And I just feel like this is a good recipe for him to walk into his next fight, which is his coming out of retirement fight.
Some people tend to do better. Obviously a 3-month training camp, your diet is on point, you're sparring, you're seeing the looks,
Your
you're bringing in people
is
that
perfect.
You're bringing in people that are similar in style to your opponent, similar in stature. If they're a southpaw, you're working with southpaws, etc.
Right.
But sometimes there's just magic in the air when somebody has no pressure on them and they can go out there and enter that flow state where it's like, I don't have that tension in my back and like I'm not grinding my teeth because I have to win this fight because I have to make a jump so I can get to the title shot. Sometimes that pressure helps fighters and allows them they manage the stress well and they excel. Sometimes when you have no pressure on your back, you have your best performance. It reminds me of, there was a game that I heard about years ago when Michael Jordan was still playing basketball in the finals and he had the flu or something and he wasn't even supposed to play, but he played anyways and had one of the best games of his career. I'm not a basketball guy. I don't know anything more than what I just offered you there, but I know that that's a very real thing, that when the pressure's off of you sometimes you tend to have a really good performance. And I think that Paul Felder, at least certainly the odds makers think that he might have a really good performance. He did not get done as dirty as RDA got done by the odds makers. Remember, the odds makers had this like a minus 650 for Islam. They've got RDA at a minus 175, give or take, depending on who you look at, and a plus 150 for Paul Felder. That's pretty dang close to a pick'em fight for a 5-round main event that one guy wasn't even training for.
Yeah, when you look at this on paper, a guy stepping in on 5 days' notice after he's just retired and hasn't really been training and getting the hard rounds in like he like RDA has been and the rest of the guys at the top of the heap. But the odds makers, I guess they're thinking the same sort of thing we're thinking, and the paralysis by analysis thing is a real, very real thing. If you have 3 months to prepare for a guy and the fight goes just as you plan, and come 3 months later you're fighting that guy that you've prepared for, you have no, in your mind as a fighter, a competitor, you have no excuses as to why you didn't see that coming. Oh man, I've studied his film. Me and my coaches, we knew that was coming, and you still can't make the adjustments to stop it. those types of things will haunt you as a fighter. And, it's I would never recommend somebody just take fights on 5 days notice. No. But it can work in your favor sometimes when you don't have the 3 months that are just sitting in your mind all day, every day. You're thinking about this guy and what he does well. But on the flip side of that, he's thinking the exact same thing. And RDA has been only thinking about Islam Makhachev probably for the past few months. So,
which is a very, very different style of fight.
Completely.
We're
talking about a high-level striker and Muay Thai expert in Paul Felder. And you got a Khabib 2.0 type of guy in Islam who's really good with the ground and pound and things like that. So it's a stylistic just nightmare as far as RDA having to prepare for one or the other. RDA is a well-rounded guy and he's experienced, so he's seen both of those types of things, and I think he's gonna put on a pretty good performance. But it is cool because you kind of just see a fight in its natural state. They're both given 5 days notice, because even if RDA's been training for the past 3 months, had a nice long training camp, it was for something else. Yeah. Now he's on a 5-day notice. Paul Felder's on a 5-day notice. It's almost like a real fist fight when you're at like a bar, or God forbid you're at school or something like that, and then like you don't have time to prepare for it. They're like, oh, this guy started beef with this guy at the lunch table, and at 3 o'clock everybody go to the locker room because they're gonna fight. It's like you don't have time to prepare and pick what their tendencies are and what they do and don't do well. It's like you're just sitting there for a second. You can't really overthink the whole situation. You just got to get in there and fight. And I
watched this tape on the last lunchroom scruff that happened.
You don't get those types of things. You don't get that type of advantage. So while RDA had the advantage of training longer, he doesn't have the advantage of scouting and understanding Paul Felder's game, and it's probably not somebody he had been thinking about fighting. So I think the odds makers might be onto something about that. If I was a betting man, I would bet some money on RDA winning, but I would have only done that if they would have given him the bump that they gave Islam Makhachev against RDA. If it was
minus
650 or something like that,
If it was minus 650, I would be inclined to put some money on Paul Felder.
You're right.
Just to roll the dice. But back to Paul Felder, you mentioned that he was 5-2 in his last 7.
Yeah.
The 2 losses were both split decision losses, most recently to Dan Hooker early this year. The other 5 were victories, including some vicious knockouts. He beat Charles Oliveira in that time. He beat James Vick in that time. Had those 2 split decisions gone the other way, and I'm not saying that they should have, but they could have.
Right.
Had they gone the other way, we would be looking at a fighter in the 155 division who's on a 7-fight win streak and beaten some of the top guys in the division, including who I picked to be the dark horse of the division in Charles Oliveira.
Yeah.
So we could be looking at a very different scenario. Maybe we wouldn't have seen a Paul Felder retirement. Maybe we would have seen a Paul Felder title shot, or at least get his name in contention there. I do think he walks away after this fight one way or the other, because I think 155 is so log jammed at the top, and there's so many. As good as Paul Felder is, I think deep down he knows that he probably can't eclipse the top 5 in that division and become the champion. So why not give the fans some fun? Speaking about the X's and O's of this fight, Paul Felder is a very good striker.
Very good.
Very good.
Well, yeah, and to the point of retiring or calling it because he doesn't think he can eclipse the guys of the top 5. I don't look at that as skill-wise. I think he can compete against a lot of the guys in the top 5 skill for skill. The problem is the names that are sitting above him and the logjam that's taking place, and there's just time isn't on his side.
Right.
If Paul Felder, even if he wins this weekend against RDA and then strings together another 2 or 3 fight win streak, you're still looking at 2022 by the time he gets a title shot, because there's just too many people in line, and we know the Conor McGregors, potentially the Khabib Nurmagomedov does the same thing Paul Felder does, comes out of retirement. The Justin Gaethjes, the Dustin Poiriers, the Tony Fergusons, and Charles Oliveira. He's one of the hottest names in the 155 division right now. Those guys are just going to be in his way. And I think
He would have to do something really incredible, like knock out RDA in glorious fashion and then turn around and fight Justin Gaethje and knock him out in glorious fashion. Then it's like, okay, you just skip the line.
Right.
But aside from that, I agree. You're looking at least 2022 if you continue to win.
And look, I'm sure he's a competitor, so we'll see him in other avenues after this. Maybe we'll see him in more UFC fights. Maybe we'll see him in some grappling tournaments or some cool things like that, grappling big fights. But what he did land, and I'll use like a fishing term, the big fish that he caught was actually becoming an analyst. Because if you look at it, there's fewer analysts that came from fighting than there are champions. So in a way, it's more rare to become a analyst from being a fighter in the UFC than it is to become a champion. And I know that every fighter on the UFC's roster would rather be a champion than an analyst, but this is a job that he's landed that's going to have
longevity.
To it. He could probably be a guy. I would love to hear Paul Felder for the next 25 years on the microphone, and that's something that most fighters cannot say. So I think all in all, Paul Felder's had a fantastic career, and he's going to continue in his next chapter of his life better off than a lot of fighters that maybe even did touch the gold at one point.
No doubt. And at 36 years old, you're reaching the edge of your prime as a fighter, but you're just barely scratching the surface of your prime as an analyst. And so this is a cool transition thing. He looks sharp in the 3-piece suit, but he can take it off, and get in there and throw hands with the best of them still. So I think this is cool. And I
hope they add that to the promo. I know it's a little short on time. They might not have too much footage and B-roll and stuff for Paul Felder. But if they do kind of just show him, like, they should just have him taking off his suit and throwing on his things. I feel like that would be cool, and people would really appreciate that in the build-up.
Yeah, for sure. Like he comes out like almost like a WWE style. Yeah. He like comes out and they play his entrance song, and then he's got the suit on and he rips it off, and he's got the shorts on underneath.
And we've largely talked about Paul Felder for most of this, and rightfully so. But we also have to talk about not the champ, but the guy who's taking this fight also on 5 days' notice, which is RDA. RDA is proven to us time and time again that he's willing to fight absolutely anybody on any day's notice, no matter what. He's going to show up and he's going to put on a good fight for us. I think I picked him against Islam Makhachev. Now I'm definitely going to pick him against Paul Felder as well. I think Paul Felder's tough as nails.
Yeah.
So I think this fight. I'm going fourth round finish from just overwhelming ground and pound for RDA.
Yeah, and I wish I would have said that before you, because that was like literally almost exactly what I was going to predict.
That's funny. And we didn't talk about this before.
No, we didn't. And guys, actually, when we get on here, we don't have notes about what we talk about. We just kind of get on here and flow and have conversation like we always do. So
that's right.
I know we've been corrected before for messing up, but we do 20-minute videos. You got to give us a couple of mistakes here and there. But anyways, Paul Felder is an excellent striker. RDA is also an excellent striker. Both guys can take a punch. We know that. Where I think RDA has the advantage is in the grappling, is in the clinch. I think he's a bit stronger. I think he's a bit more seasoned as a grappler, and I think he can invoke the ground and pound. Because you picked fourth round, I'm going to go third round.
Okay.
I think Paul Felder wins the first round. I think it's a bit of a feeling out round. I think he wins it. He edges it out on strikes. I think RDA starts to wear him down, maybe gets a takedown in the second, and I think he's able to get the job done in the third with some ground and pound.
Yeah, and I think RDA's experience in his last few fights at 170 is going to give him a little bit of a advantage as far as feeling a body at 170, and then like a Kamaru Usman or a Colby Covington, and then dropping down 15 pounds and feeling a body of Paul Felder. There's going to be a large difference, and that's going to actually play into his favor. So I think it's going to be a fantastic fight, a main event on a card that needs all the help it can possibly get. So I think these guys understand that, and they're going to put on a show for us. And I can't thank either of them enough for saving this card and keeping it intact.
Yeah, this is great, and I was already a fan of Paul Felder's. I'm even more so now.
Absolutely. And even if let's just say he doesn't retire, this officially puts both of them in the running for the BMF And I know,
yeah.
You know, it's not one of those things that you're ever going to see happen, but anytime somebody does something that like pushes them into that, we have to just make a note of it. We have to let it be known that yes, in fact, if Paul Felder ever got the call for BMF, he deserves it. If RDA, he's earned it. These guys taking this fight, they've both earned it.
It's like a guest list.
We need a list.
Yeah, like you may never you might not show up on Saturday night to try to get in, but your name is on the list regardless, and you have to, in my opinion, do something to get your name on the list.
Right.
Taking off the 3-piece suit on 5 days' notice and getting in there with a former champion.
Checks him. He's on the list.
You're on the list.
Yep.
So, you know, if Dana White makes a call and the BMF title's on the line, you revert to the list.
Right.
Paul Felder's name's on it.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, so that was my point. And we'll just try to every now and again we'll find somebody that does something that warrants that, and we'll add them to the list.
Yeah, for sure. Guys, are you as excited about the Paul Felder RDA fight as we are? I was hoping for Islam Makhachev to see something out of him, but I am equally, if not more, excited for this fight. Hopefully Islam can get things together, get his injuries healed up, and get back in there soon. But in the meantime, the Irish Dragon is going to give us a banger.
Saving the day.
That's it. Thanks so much, guys, for watching. Please always like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And check us out where you listen to podcasts. Have a great day.
See you in the next one.